Hello. Hi, everyone. Oh, that did. Whoop. Hang on. Hold up. There we go. Hello. Welcome to the non-scuffed recording of VTuber 101. Should probably change that title so it's more screen accurate. There we go. That's it. I totally haven't been screwing up my advertisements, but hello, welcome back. Welcome to another rousing, another splendiferous introduction into this series where we cover basics of the basics surrounding VTubing. Now, this part of it, this section of the series is going to be covering infrastructure. Now, just to set your expectations. Infrastructure, when it comes to what it is we're doing, is quite an in-depth thing. There are a lot of pages of information and books and stuff that you can research, and there are like 1,001 different individual things we can talk about when it comes to building computers, networking, all that sort of stuff. In fact, just to give you some context, when I was just finishing up this presentation or this PowerPoint today, I actually did a banana for scale kind of thing and went back to the book that I read when I was studying for my CompTIA A+ exam, which is pretty much where you certify to say, I know about computer hardware, I know how to build a computer, I know how to troubleshoot, right? And the book that I studied for that exam was about 1,524 pages long, approximately. I might be missing a couple of digits there, but to give you an idea of how big that book is, the original book for Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, like the 1954 release, is about 520 odd pages, give or take. So that book, and it is a thick boy, is about 1/3 the size of the book that you need to read and study and know to be prepared to sit the exam that says you know how to build a computer. I mean, obviously that book has changed, and you'll see a lot. But if you want to know more about the A+ exam and what it means to build a computer, at least with the knowledge that is deemed to be industry standard of the last 3 years, you'd go by this book here. If you want to understand how all of that hardware interacts with, like, the internet, your local network, that sort of stuff, you'd go off of this book here. Now, I'm not going to cover everything there, because to do it in a length that would be satisfactory to at least my understanding, where I could teach you everything you need to know about computers, so that I could say, right, here are some specs, here is my objective, go out and build me a computer, done. And this is how you troubleshoot, and this is how you interpret that test, and this is how you put hardware together, and then testing and integration and networking and routers and basic security is a year-long course just to get you to that point. So I'm not doing that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick little bits from each of these books to give you a very bare-bones understanding of computer hardware and networking and a little bit of software as well. Now, you might be sitting here saying, well, hang on, that's some stuff that I'm into, but to give you an idea of why we're not going into it is like again, year-long course. Now, infrastructure. This is how we are going to define it. We're going to define infrastructure as any hardware, which is your PC, your screen, your VR headset, any software such as Live2D, OBS, or Steam, or anything else such as your internet, your antivirus, and your cloud storage that is needed for your content creation. Now, specifically to the other section, we won't be touching base specifically on the antivirus or the cloud storage for a couple of reasons. First, I don't currently hold an S+ certification, so I don't feel comfortable saying insert software here is the best solution for you. Obviously, because what I deem to be appropriate may not be current with your setup, it may not be especially relevant to your budget, but the great thing about it is, even though it's not current, even though my certification isn't current, I can assure you having some antivirus is better than no antivirus, and that's all that I'll say on that. When it comes to cloud storage, that's, again, it's not something that I can't touch on. It's just that is a subject more relating to when you're thinking about, okay, now my content creation is going to go from I'm just streaming games to now I'm streaming games, but I'm also doing video editing. Oh no, I can't edit all this video. I'm just going to put it in a cloud storage so my video editor can pick from that, do his magic, and then upload it to YouTube. That sort of thing. It is a larger conversation about how your content gets changed and uploaded to the internet, or gets handed off to someone else to do that for you. And again, that's another thing that I don't currently do. It's not something I can speak to, and given that the objective of this series is to do the basics for people who are just getting into VTubing, it's not relevant. But what I will say is, at least for the most part, cloud storage as it's been developed now, very simple. Most people can figure it out in a couple of seconds, and if not, chances are you can find someone who will explain it for you. Now, if your entire shtick is, I like talking about security, I like talking about computer hardware, I like, all that nitty gritty stuff, again, that's cool. But if you want me to touch base on that as a extension of this specific section, or as its own video, I'll take note of that, and when I reach affiliate, I'll either create a video based on your thing specifically as to, for example, why you chose this over that, or I need you to expand on how to choose individual parts, or I want you to say how, I want you to give a scenario of how cloud storage can help me. More than happy to do it, but it's, unfortunately, I have, just because of the workload that I have for my stuff going forward, it's going to have to wait until I become affiliate, because that's when I will have the most time spare to actually invest in creating something that I would deem to be a quality product that not only answers your question, but actually looks somewhat presentable as well, because these presentations, doing the research and polish on it to get it to compress all this knowledge down to a digestible format does take a bit of time, a bit of finagling around my date schedule, so it's not something I can really dedicate to, at least it's not something I can dedicate time to within my current schedule, so it would have to be a future goal. But more than willing to do it if you later on if you request it. So we are going to anchor this section around these 3 points here: some PC building tips, we're going to touch base on software, and then we're going to talk about test and tune, which, when we get to these last two parts, there will be a bit of back and forth. So in software, we'll touch on some parts that will be in test and tune, and then in test and tune, we'll then refer back to those parts that we discussed in software. It may sound a bit confusing, but trust me, the way that I've laid it out makes the most sense, at least to me. But if you feel as though, again, you'd like it explained differently, or you say, no, you should have included this, you can type in !links at any time during this. This will link you through to my socials, which will be popping up right there. I'm active on Twitter, TikTok, Discord, YouTube, and right here at home on Twitch. More than happy to take notes, because if I've not discussed something in a way that you can understand, that then means that I now have the tools to do better for you in the future. So, when it comes to PC building tips, there are 101 ways that you can build a computer. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them will drain your damn wallet. What I'll try to do, at least in this section, is to help make that road easier for you to guide, not only in terms of what you should do, but also how you can potentially save some money as well during the process. So, when you've been out and about on Twitch or at your friend's place, or you've talked to someone who builds computers on the daily for gaming, you've probably come across, maybe not this specific case, but like a very fancy computer case with stuff going on, things like that, like fancy curves, holes in it, that sort of thing. You've probably also heard someone say, oh, you need 101 monitors, or you've seen a lot of people use RGB on their keyboards and in their computers, and insist that water cooling is the way to go. And you might think, well, if I don't do that, is my computer not going to be good enough? Am I going to be deemed a failure? Will people look at it and go, oh, you don't know how to build computers? Well, That is wrong. In fact, this setup right here is ideal for getting your feet wet in VTubing, because really all you need is a computer, keyboard, mouse, and a screen, and you're ready to get going. Now when it comes to actually what you put inside of your computer, what I would recommend is find the game that has the highest system requirements. Ideally go off the recommended requirements and build off of that. But for each individual spec, you want to add 20 to 30% on top of like your video memory, your RAM, and your CPU as well, and as well as what hard drive you use. Now, hard drives are a bit of a different thing, because if you're installing multiple games, that's when you need to start being a bit careful, because different games have different storage requirements as far as your hard drive goes. What I've done for the most part is that I've had my operating system and my games on 2 separate hard drives, just because with Windows updates being what they are, they tend to take up a bit of space. So having the 2 separate means I don't have to worry about deleting games off of my computer, because my operating system is taking up too much space. But really, that's what I'd recommend. And even if you go off the minimum system requirements and you add 20 to 30%, that will still help you out, because what this percentage here does is that does what's called future-proofing your PC, because when you build a PC, it's a lot of time, a lot of money invested into getting each individual piece of hardware together and built for you. And the last thing you want to do is to have to go through that process a lot of times in a given, like a month, a year, however quickly your hardware may become outdated. So if you can spec it in such a way where you go just a little bit beyond the highest specs that your most... Sorry, I'm just going to rephrase that. When it comes to building your PC, if you can go 20 to 30% above what your most intensive game is in terms of what your PC requirements are, the less often you'll have to rebuild your PC, because the stronger you can build it, when you start from zero, means that the longer it'll be able to play the games that you want to play, not only now but in the future, because who knows, there could be a game down the track that you want to play that if you didn't add that 20 to 30% on top of your system specs, you might not be able to. Now, do you have to add 20 to 30%? No. That is just my recommendation to you. But, again, definitely a very good idea, because a lot of the games coming out now are, requiring more and more and more from our computers, and then when you factor in that you're streaming, you're doing avatars, and if you're recording content for YouTube where you're going to edit it, there's additional load as well. So more hardware within your budget, more better, but if you can't swing it, that's okay too. Just so long as you can build it so that it can play the games that you want, you should be fine, hopefully, because who knows, if you spec it to this, it might not work for the games you want to play in the future. But, again, there are ways and means of going fixing that. A popular option is to buy what's called upgrade kits. Now, upgrade kits have it where you buy your motherboard, your RAM, and your CPU all in one hit. I'm not sure if most hardware shops such as Newegg are doing that now, but if you can find something like that relevant to what it is that you wanted to do, that's another way to go about it. Now, it used to be, and I bring this up now, it used to be a couple years ago when I was building, computers not just for myself, but also recommending builds to other people, I wouldn't even touch the operating system, and that's because, generally speaking, when I spec'd a PC for people at that time, like a couple years ago, and this is before Windows 11, so long as you went off of the recommended system requirements of your most intense program, at least as far as computer hardware is concerned, or system requirements is concerned, you were fine. Because generally speaking, you'd have no issues, and most, like I say, 8 times out of 10, you'd be okay for upgrading to the next version of Windows. However, Windows 11 does present a bit of a challenge, because we now need to also make sure that the motherboard we spec has one of these. Now, a couple years back, these were floating around, and these are what's called a TPM or Trusted Platform Module. Basically, it uses your computer's hardware to create virtual locks that can aid in, making things a bit safer for you. Now, the reason a lot of people are having problems upgrading to Windows 11 outside of, hardware requirements, which again is very, very rare, is because most motherboards, up until very recently, didn't have this as standard. It was an optional extra. Like, people actually had to go out of their way to buy this if they really wanted it, and really not many people use it anyway. But if Windows 11 is installed and it doesn't see a TPM chip on your computer that's 2.0 or higher, it will go, nope, your computer doesn't meet minimum system requirements. Like, it will, like, you could have the right CPU, the right RAM, the right everything else, but if it doesn't see a TPM with TPM 2.0 or higher, it'll just go, nope, doesn't meet minimum requirements. So, again, if you are building a computer today, make sure when you go through the motherboard, you see it has a TPM chip with this specific version. And that's about all I'll say on that. I personally don't like TPMs because I don't see the point, but, I only bring it up because of the aforementioned reason. Now, here are a couple of different options. Consider buying a second monitor. Now, again, you do not need a second monitor. It is not going to be a hardware limitation, as in like OBS or whatever software you ultimately decide to go with won't stream because it doesn't detect a second monitor. What a second monitor allows you to do, however, is it allows you to game on one screen, but also have your chat displaying on another screen. Now, for me personally, I have OBS open, which has a chat window integrated into it, and this allows me to see people when they send messages to me and all of that lovely jubbly. Now, for this second monitor, you really don't need much from it. Most of the time, you should be safe buying a second-hand monitor or one on sale. It's only when you want to get into multi-monitor games, which again is very, like, I've seen only a select few games that do that, such as simulator games, but, generally speaking, for most of the games that you'll be playing on stream, you can get away with like a very mid to low end monitor, because at the end of the day, all I'd recommend you do with it is just have, like I said, OBS open with the stream chat, and you'll be fine. As far as internet goes, again, I understand everyone's budget is different. Everyone has different limitations, but what I'd recommend you do is go for an unlimited internet connection, and ideally have it so that it's a fiber internet connection, because, again, copper internet can be great, and it is great, but fiber generally has better upload and download speeds, and, it's just very cash money in my experience. And the last thing I'll touch on as far as an extra tip goes is be very wary of second-hand parts. Now, I'm not saying don't do it, because that would be hypocritical, because all but two of the computers I've owned, I've built from scrap parts, and only the one I'm running now I actually built from brand new parts that I put together a couple years back. And you can get a lot of parts for cheap secondhand, but speaking from experience, there's a lot of risk that goes with that, because unlike buying new, there's no knowing what life that part had, there's no knowing if that part's any good, and especially secondhand, there's no guarantee that if you order the part it will actually come. In fact, I've seen horror stories of people who bought like a graphics card or insert part here, they've got the box, it feels like it's the part that they've ordered, but then they've opened it and it's just been weighed down with, like, you know, errant bits of metal or stuff like that to make it feel like it's a real part, and then it's just, it's not fun. Also, when you get the part, you need to know not only how to test the part is good, but actually interpret the test correctly to see if the part's not only going to work for you, but if it will actually last long term. Now, in any situation, when you think you have all of your specs together and you're ready to hit buy now on whatever site that you buy, before you do that, create a list of every single part that you're going to buy, whether it's your hardware, your operating system, all of those. Put that together as a list. Take that to a friend that you know or your local PC building shop and say, I am going to be a streamer, I'm going to play these games, these are what the games require, this is what I put together, is there anything you would do different? Most shops will take a quick look and probably might do it for free, might not. And if you take it to the shop, they'll probably make... if you take it to a shop, they'll probably make some changes based on things that they've seen and horror stories I've heard, and if you're very lucky, they may even offer to build it for you. Now, if they build it for you, there's probably going to be a price attached. Be prepared for that. But, that is one way to remove the stress from you, because if you're a bit nervous about building a computer, having someone who does that as a job do that for you can be an option. But if you want to experiment, there are 101 different guides on YouTube that will show you how to put stuff together. And at least with hardware as it sits today, you should be pretty safe. Now, when it comes to the software side of things, this is what I would recommend for your avatar. Now, the great thing about these programs is they're all free. They're all great. These two programs here work hand in hand with each other. So with these two, what you do is that you'd make your model here, you'd then export it, and then upload it to this program here. You'd then have your iPhone or your webcam set up to run through this program. You'd then have your mic run through it as well, and you're away going. But for the purposes of this presentation and this series going forward, we're going to stick with ViaDoTube because, again, another free program, but it's easier on your computer because it requires next to no system resources, and it's free. But if you want to do models in the future, it's going to be way cheaper than 3D or live 2D models. Now, this is just an example of how I've set stuff up myself. Originally, when I did this series, I actually had just 2 images set up of that Wojak guy. But I've decided to settle on this because this is what I think best depicts me as a person in real life. Now, when it comes to ViaDoTube, you can have it where you do 2 images, which is just eyes open, mouth closed, eyes open, mouth open, and you'll be away laughing. Now, if you want to get a little bit more fancy, you can either create or commission an additional 2 set of images, which is eyes closed, mouth closed, and eyes closed, mouth open. Now, again, this is something you'll probably do yourself if you're a skilled artist, but the great thing is that if you want to commission an artist to do this for you, it can cost upwards of $150, or as much as however much they want to charge. Because, now again, very simple image, but what you need to understand about VTubing is that the more popular it gets, the higher demand the demand for artists will be, and the higher the demand for artists there are, the more the prices will rise. So I can't say where the future is going to go, at least as far as 2D models go, even as far as ViaDoTube goes, but what I can say is, hopefully at least, this will, doing a set of 4 images for ViaDoTube will continue to be the cheapest option out there. But we'll have to see, because the future is a weird place. Now, to get a broader picture of how much it would cost for you personally, I'd recommend going to a bunch of artists who have examples of their work, say to them what you want, what you want your model to be, or you have a conversation about like some ideas and try to get quotes from different artists and choose the one that fits best for not only what sort of style you want, but what sort of budget you have. Because the last thing you want to do is spend too much money when you can't afford it. When you're just starting out, you want to try to keep things, as low cost as you can until you're comfortable with investing money into this. Because with VTubing, it's not that you can't make money, it's just that it takes a while. Okay? Alright. Now, when it comes to OBS, it is the industry standard for streaming software. Yes, Streamlabs exists, but we're not going to touch on it much in this presentation. Now, we're going to touch base on these later on in the test and tune, later on in the presentation, but these are just some recommended things I think you should take note of. Again, when you're just starting out, you want to keep this as your resolution just to test. You want to run the auto-config thing, which again, we're going to do later on. Again, these aren't super necessary to start off with. Really, you only need the gaming screen. And this thing here, again, we'll touch base on it later on. Don't worry too much. If you want to pause and read this on YouTube, you can. But again, this is something that we'll be covering later on in the presentation when we do a little bit of a live demonstration. Now, up until this point, I haven't really touched base on overlays, and there's a very good reason for that. You don't need overlays. When you're starting out, they are not mission critical. And the reason I say that is because my entire ethos behind this series is baby steps, doing just enough to get knowledge. Now, when it comes to overlays, nothing's stopping you from going on Fiverr or another website saying, I want an overlay for Twitch. The problem with that is if you want an overlay to be relevant to you as a streamer, that you, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's best to do that when you have the style of your avatar down packed, and not only the style of your avatar, but also the style of content that you want to produce. And that does take time. Now, nothing's preventing you from using like a fancy overlay that you get from Fiverr, but I find that it's easier to have those conversations about what sort of color you'll use, what sort of shapes you use, what sort of font you'll use. All those sorts of decisions are easier to make once you have your style and the theme of your channel set out and finalized, so that you can create something that you, what's the word I'm searching for, vibe with. Okay? Alright. But for those that are curious about what I would recommend to do it solo and to do it on the cheap, first port of call, Canva. Now, this can be used to do a bunch of different things. I've used it to make schedules for Instagram and other social medias. The great thing about Canva is that it can be used on the go because they have a really good mobile app. And it can also be used to create all of your scenes as well. Well, at least part of it, because you might have seen, hang on, I have a chat window. Hang on, I have stream alerts. Can you do that in Canva? No. Canva does the artwork. It doesn't do all of that fancy stuff. For all of the fancy stuff, you need to go to GIMP. Because what you'll do is on Canva, you'll create your gaming screen. But when you're done with the design, you need to download it, you need to make the background transparent, and then you need to export that as a PNG, ideally, and you'll then take that image and upload it to Stream Elements. Now, Stream Elements handles all of the complex stuff for me, so it'll take that image, it'll apply the chat box over here, it'll have the alerts happening somewhere around here, and it'll continue to leave this area transparent so that when I set it up in OBS, all of my stuff will come through. And again, that's something that we'll cover later on. Don't freak out. We are going to touch base on it. I'm just mentioning that this is how it's relevant to us as streamers. And, of course, I have to mention Streamlabs because it is still a thing. Streamlabs exists, but it is a horrendously, and I mean horrendously, hardware-intensive program to use for streaming. It will lag your computer into the Shadow Realm, I can confirm you of this, and the only reason I still use it at all is because on a couple of my screens I do use the chat box widget. There is a game screen that I haven't had to use for a while that uses that widget. I use that widget on the stream loading and on hold screen. It does serve a purpose, but unless you're going to get into multi-screen, multi-scene setups, not wholly relevant. No. And you can even do away with it entirely because like I've said in the past, this slide here. So in Stream Elements, you can set up multiple scenes, but what you can also do is you can create your very own chat widget if you know what you're doing. And I may even show you how to do that if we have enough time. You can have it where you just create that as a individual overlay, and then you can have it where you insert that into OBS, rotate it, and do all your fun stuff, much in the same way you would with Streamlabs chat widget. Now, you might be thinking, well, do I need to use Streamlabs? Should I use Chatbox widget? I'm confused. And it's like, well, it's entirely up to you. The only reason I still use it is because it's what I was originally setting up my stream with. And it's too much work for me now to remove it when I have a whole lot more other important stuff to take care of. I might in the future create my own little widget and Stream Elements to replace what I use Streamlabs for, but we'll see. Because although I'm not a fan of Streamlabs, because they've been working with Twitch for so long, they don't have a delay on chat messages, so when you type something into Twitch, it'll like milliseconds after appear on stream. Problem with Stream Elements, however, is their coding isn't as great. So I'll type something here into chat, like Rain Munch fantastic, and it's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's like 3 seconds before it will actually appear on stream. Oh, hey Red, nice to see you. Do you want a VOV boober? You're funny. We're just going over like the infrastructure side of things of VTubing and how Streamlabs is absolute arse and you probably shouldn't touch it because of this point right here. See this point right here? It will lag your computer into the Shadow Realm, I swear to God. Now, we've touch based on a lot of hardware. Touch based on a lot of software. Words. I am bored. So what we're going to do now, well, I'm not saying I'm bored. You may be frustrated and you want like a bit of a change of pace. And we're going to have a change of pace because right now we're going to do a live demo. So I will just set up a couple of things for you. Doot. Okay, so we have that open. Okay, and just while I'm sitting there, I hope you are having an absolutely wonderful day. Because I personally haven't been that great. I've been a little bit down in the dumps, but you know what? That's okay, because I have all of you, and that makes my day just a pinch better. You know why? Because you're awesome. Okie dokie, and you know what? I think we're about ready. So, are you ready? Are you ready for a bit of tomfoolery? Are you ready to get stuff done? Because what we're going to do is this. Boom. Everything's gone black. Why? Why is everything gone black? Well, when you open up OBS for the first time, you'll generally be met with a blank screen. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to pretty much insert things manually. Now, first thing that you'll have to add is you'll have to add something that you want to capture. Now, for most people, it'll be a game capture source. But for us, however, we're going to play pretend. WinCat. Hooray! We're going to call it WinCat Test 1. Okay. And we are going to set it up like that. Hooray! Now, when you first set up your capture, this is probably, this thing here is the only thing you'll see. These two things here won't exist, because when you set up your sources, you have to enter everything manually. So for your mic, what you would do, well, for your display, let's start with the first thing, be linear. You go here, you go add display capture, and then we'll show it. To add your scene, however, which is what this is all contained in, you go add new scene, and then you call it whatever it is that you want to call it. We're going to call it GameCap2. Well, then we'll continue to add our sources after that exists. Bit of back and forth. Hue. Now when it comes to audio, again, that isn't in here by default. What you need to do is that for your mic, you'll go here, you'll go add input capture, then you'll call it something relevant. You can just leave it by default like I've done, or you can call it my mic. And if you only have one mic that you ever use for everything, you can just leave it as default. 9 times out of 10 that will work. But if you have multiple mics for whatever reason, you just choose the mic that you use. Or well, that you want to use for your streams, I should say. If you have stream music, that can get a little bit trickier. You'd then come down to here, you'd go down to here, you'd go source do, and then you can just find wherever, you can just go to wherever it is that your music is stored, and you can add it in that way. Now here's an example of what that looks like for me. No, we're not going filters. Here's an example of what I've set up. So you can just add a multiple MP3s, you can loop it, you can shuffle it. I personally don't, because Pogo's great. And that's all well and good. Now, we're missing something, can't we? Can anyone guess what that is? Would anyone have a clue? That's right, we're missing the avatar. How do we add the avatar? Well, again, apart from when we talked about all of those 3D programs and stuff like that, when it comes to VSeeFace and ViaDoTube, it's effectively the same thing. You'll go to your sources, you'll go game capture, we'll call it VTB, capture any full screen application, capture a specific window, and we'll look for our ViaDoTube program. Now, I'm gonna add that. Hey, what's the problem here? Well, the problem, and this is something I made, this is an error I had in the Scuffed stream, is we need to click Allow Transparency. And the reason for that is if we don't, it'll look like that. Now, by default, ViaDoTube is transparent, but unless you enable that in OBS, it'll just have like, the ugliness behind it. You don't want that. Click Allow Transparency, hit OK, and you're away laughing. You can just resize that to suit. I prefer to have it in the corner like this because that works for me. And when you start out, this will be enough. This is all you need. You do not need anything else. This is enough for you to get started. But what if you want to do more? Well, here's how you do it. You can start. I'd recommend that you start in Canva. Do it yourself. It'll be cheaper. It'll be better. This is just an example of an overlay that I've created myself. how I've done these boxes is that it's one box with a grey filling and a thick outline to it with rounded edges. Now, this indent here is a cream-filled box with a black outline with rounded edges, but what I've done is that I've just inserted a cream box over top the edges so that it looks like it's indented in. I might then have a space set aside for the chat window as well. Now, the reason I've left that grey is because we're going to be opening up GIMP soon. And there's a very good reason for that. GIMP, open up. Because Canva does not do transparent images, transparency, unless you pay for it. So what we can do is that we can go share, we can go download as PNG, and we're all good. We can just go open there. Oh look, I have some Kerbals. Hue. We can drag and drop this image, which is our overlay, into here, and that's great. Now, first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that this window here is open. Right click, add alpha to section, grab our little magic wand, select all of that grey nastiness, hit delete, boom, our game screen is now screen. Well, I mean, we can screen because we're doing wizardry, but our game screen, at least the section we're going to be using for displaying video, is now transparent. So, next step is to go File, Export As, and this is where things get a wee bit tricky. And the reason I say that is because, try as I might, I cannot search for all the folders in this program the same way I can in Photoshop. That's just how it is. Easiest way I've found is to try to have some sort of common folder that you'd use for all of your Twitch related content. Create a new folder, we'll call it Twitch. Twitch overlays. And we'll call this something relevant. We'll call it Communist Pop-Tart Game Scene. I probably spelled that wrong, but we won't focus on that. We'll just pretend. We'll just pretend that's good. Do you need to click anything here? Probably not, but this is my stream, so we're clicking everything. Because I am the captain now. Then you hit export. Great. Now what? Well, can I import this into GIMP? Yeah, probably. Can I use it in OBS? Yeah. Nothing's going to stop you. But if you're going to go this far, you may as well use Stream Elements. So, go to here, go down to your gamer shit, go to your Twitch shit, go to your Twitch overlays, and keep this window open. Because that'll be coming handy very soon. Yep, cool. No one's rated me, that's good. Okay, now, in Stream Elements, what you want to do, is you want to sign into this with your Twitch account, or if you're using YouTube, sign into with your Google account. But again, same either way. You're signing in to whatever platform that you're streaming to. Now, the reason you're doing that is because what Stream Elements can do is a bunch of neat things that we'll touch base on in a minute. But right now, we need to create a new overlay. So we're going to hit sign up with our Twitch account. We're going to go to Stream Tools, go Overlays, and we're going to create a new overlay. Now when you're creating a new overlay, you want to have it where, again, you use the 1080p resolution, but pay attention because there is an error that's going to come up, and we'll touch base on it in a little bit. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to name this. So we're going to go Nest Art Game. We're going to call it Test 1. Haha. going to immediately hit save. Alright, because the last thing we want to do is exit and have this be like an untitled thing that we don't know what it's for. So cool, we've named it. What else do we need to do? Well, we need to start adding things in with this little widget here. First thing we'll do is we'll go static custom and we'll add an image. We'll then go set image, upload. We'll go back to that folder that we had with our overlay and drag and drop. It's that easy. We'll then hit upload. All well and good. Hit submit. We'll be away laughing. What you then need to do is that you'll need to resize that so that it fills the entire grid. Lovely stuff. What else do we need to add? Well, we need to add our chat box. Now, here is why we needed to log in with our Twitch account. What Stream Elements does is that it will tie into your Twitch account, and whenever someone sends a message, Stream Elements will then pick that up and then pass it through to OBS. And how it does that, we'll touch base on a little bit, but what we need to do is we need to go back to here, we need to go to Stream Tools, and then click Add Stream Chat. We'll then resize that it fits all nice and cool. We'll then go over to Theme, Custom, and boom. It's black. It's great. It's awesome. Now, if you want to add stream alerts, and again, not necessary for beginners, but if it is something that you want to do, go add. You can go add engagement alerts. Add engagement alerts, alert box, and boom. Now, I personally recommend that you resize that and put it somewhere that works for you. Now, by default, most people have it here. But why might that not be a good idea? Well, to test whether it's a good idea or if it's not a good idea, you can hit emulate, and we'll go, say, what's the problem there? Well, the text looks a little bit unreadable. So if we change it so that, I don't know, so maybe over here instead. Would that look better? Well, let's see. Hey, that's a bit more readable. Now, you might be thinking, well, what happens if our chat box gets up with messages? Well, what you can do, you can resize it so that your chat box maybe, I don't know, isn't going to go over behind it. Or what you can do is you can go back to your artist, or you can go back to Canva and have it so that this window maybe comes down to about this level here, and then right above here is where you have all your alerts. It's entirely up to you. Personally, I have mine over in the corner just a little bit, and then I resize it. But again, that might not work for you. So have a play, have a bit of a follow around, see what works for you. Yep, do we need to do anything here? No. So, to make things easier on the eyes, we're just going to leave it over here. So that's that size. And we're just going to have a bit of a play with leaving it overlapping the chat box. Is it ideal? No. Should you do it that way? It's up to you. But just to make things easier, we're going to leave it like that for funsies, because we're just playing, we're experimenting. So, once I've got everything laid out, everyone well and good, we are then going to hit save all our work, and then we're going to copy the URL. Now this is where it will get technical with integrating into OBS, because remember how I said it will pass everything through to OBS? Well, what it does is, with OBS, you'll be adding what's called a browser source. All that means is for whatever it is that you're adding into that scene, as opposed to it looking around inside your computer for whatever that source is, it will go out to a specific web address and then pull whatever that resource is into your computer over your internet connection. With Stream Elements, what it will send OBS over that connection is your stream alerts, and it will send your chat as well, so that all of that will appear as it happens on your stream rather than not happening at all. Sounds convoluted, it really isn't. Because basically all it will look like on your stream is that. When someone follows, it'll look like, dude, come on. All like that when someone tips. And all of that will happen in Stream Elements, and then it will be passed through to OBS, and then it will display on your stream. Sounds complicated, really isn't. So, we'll copy that. Whoop. Whoop. Hey. And then we'll go here. We'll go browser source. We'll call this overlay test 1. Or if we feel like we're feeling a bit confident, we can call it something relevant like stream dash overlay. We'll then go, haha, add that, but oh, hold up. Can anyone spot the problem? What's wrong with this picture? That's right, this. So the problem is when we go to display this, it'll actually only display 800 by 600 pixels of what it is that we're trying to look at. So we'll then go back here. We'll then go layers, style. We'll then look at this resolution here. Now this is what we need to input. So we need to go for, whoop, nope. Then open that. Go back here. Nope. Okay, so width is 1940. There we go. Width is 1940. No, width is 1924. 1924. And our height is 1146. 1160. Yeah, ignore those alerts. That's just Stream Elements. So we'll then add that. We'll then set all that up, make sure it's good, hit OK. Boom! Our overlay's now set up. Oh no! What's the problem there? Well, when you set up something new in OBS, it'll by default go to the top of your sources, which means it will display over everything. We don't want that. So we could layer it down, or we could just put our avatar above that in the order. I don't like the way the avatar's set up. There we go. I don't like that either. Resize. Lovely. Now, in terms of what we're capturing, you then go to your display capture or your game capture, whatever it is for you, and then you can resize it to fit inside that window. Now, if you find that there's a bit of space here above that you want filled, or you want to maybe get a bit fancy with it, you can hold Shift, then resize it that way. There we go. But if you find that gets a bit too blurry for your stream, you can always go back to Canva, redo this, upload it back into Stream Elements, and you'll be away laughing. Now for small text, this might be a bit of an issue doing that sort of resizing. Generally speaking, for games, you won't run into too many issues because most of the time the text that's in games is big and bold and readable and won't be as distorted. But again, if you feel like, you want to have a more slitted, a more compact experience, you can always resize it in Canva, upload it to Stream Elements, then save that new overlay and then put that back into OBS. It's just whatever fancy stuff that you want to do. Now, here is where things get a wee bit technical. So now that we have OBS set up, we have our audio capture set up, we have... Oh, whoop, whoop. I'm going to remove that because that's obscenely loud. There we go. Yes, I want to remove my mic. Cool. So now that we have everything set up, we now need to start thinking about, okay, can I stream? The answer is no. By default, when you have this all set up, and you've just installed OBS for the first time, you can't actually stream to it because OBS doesn't know, one, what the settings are, and what you should be streaming to, and where's your stream can, yada yada yada. So before you do any of this, ideally, or you can do it after, but it does get a bit technical with resizing certain elements. I prefer to do it before, but you could prefer to do it after if that's your thing. You want to go through these steps here. So you want to hit settings, and then this, you want to go straight to the stream portions of settings in OBS. Now, there are two ways that you can do this. You can go on YouTube, or you can go on Twitch, and you can find your stream key. Now, if you want to go through that complication, more power to you. But what I'd recommend is selecting the service that you want to sign up with and then signing in with your account on that service. Now, I go to Twitch. The only reason I've brought up YouTube in this picture is because I just want to show you what that button looks like. So once you've done that, you then want to go to the auto configuration wizard. Some people will boo me for this, but some people can suck eggs. You then want to go through the configuration wizard, and you're going to do that because this is the first part of what you're going to be doing for testing. Because what that will do is it'll ask you a bunch of questions. Do you want to optimize your experience just for streaming or recording? Personally, I recommend that you optimize for streaming, and I only do that because when I do my streams, I'll just stream straight to Twitch, and then I'll upload that VOD from Twitch directly to YouTube, and it's happy days. Less load on my computer, I don't have to have it on as long for uploading, and everybody wins. Plus, I generally find that the upload from Twitch to YouTube is much faster than doing it myself, and less work for me. Sweet. But you do what works for you, because if you want to optimize for recording, that will be really great if you're taking that recording and then chopping it up for content, or then tweaking that because you find that you may swear a lot and you don't want that on your channel because you want to be advertiser friendly. So if you were going down that route, I'd recommend that you optimize for recording and not streaming. If you're just doing, chopping of content and then uploading. Now, again, you can change this at any time by just rerunning the auto configuration wizard. It's entirely up to you, but I'd recommend always going for the top one because you should be fine in either way. Because nothing's stopping you from, when you go by the optimize for streaming, nothing's stopping you from like hitting start stream and start record. The next window you'll see is this. Now, again, take note of everything that's said here, because that's just the canvas size. It won't necessarily be what's sent out to Twitch. But again, I'd recommend that you set these because you want to test with the lowest possible resolution that you'll set out as. You then want to select that the service that you're sending out to. Again, don't worry about these other things too much. The only thing you really need to worry about it. Actually, no, let's touch base on it. So, always go with hardware-based encoding, and always ask it to estimate bandwidth. Again, if you haven't signed up with Twitch, it may ask you to connect here if you didn't do it via the settings before. But, again, sorry, my brain's sort of seizing at the moment because again, provided you've done it in the way I've described, that shouldn't be an issue. So once you've selected this and you've signed in, or if you're already signed in and it selected it for you, hit next, and it'll come up with this window here. Do not freak out. This is just running tests based on everything that you set before to see what the recommended settings are for OBS when you want to yeet stuff at Twitch. Once it's done, it'll then come up with something that looks like this. A bunch of recommended settings that it will recommend based on your connection from your computer to Twitch. Now, see here, base canvas resolution is pretty much the size of what it is that you've set up in OBS. Now, output resolution is the video size it will send to Twitch. Sometimes those can be two separate things. But we've set the base canvas resolution like that so that it will hopefully, if we're very lucky, based on the settings, pick up that our output resolution is going to be preferred 1280 by 720. Now, if you have like a reason to stream at a higher resolution, do it. I'm only recommending that you stream at lower resolution because all you're really worried about, at least for the first couple of times that you stream, is making sure that everything's set up and that your stream isn't going to get balked, because balked stream is not good. And that's all that. Once you have that all set up and you're logged into Twitch, you should see something that looks very much like this. So you have your scene with all of your elements that we just added in, and you'll also have your chat window over here where I can chat to you guys. Hi Twitch, hello, love to see you. And you'll also have this. Now this is what I use and what you'll use as well, because this will be the title of what it is that you're streaming. This will be just like a notification saying such and such is doing ... Now category is ridiculously important, because this is where you'll, like, say I wanted to stream Just Cause 3. I'd go Just Cause 3. It would recommend some categories for me, and then I can add some tags as well on top of that. So I might add what's relevant to this? Add explosion, so that if people want to search for a stream that has explosions in it, oh look, they can find that there. I can also say I'm going to be like streaming in English, because some people will be speaking Japanese, Russian, whatever it may be. Once you've got all that set up, you can hit done. It'll update. I'm not going to. And then when you go to have that all set up and you hit stream, it'll then send that out to stream, so that when people go to search for content related to what you're streaming, they'll then see this nice neat little tag and go, oh, that's something that I want to look at. I like that. I've actually looked for something like that. I'm going to hit click. And that's really what you want, because the more appealing you can make your title, the more likely people are going to be to click in your stream, which is really lovely. So you'll hit that, you'll then hit record, start stream. It will then send all that up to Twitch. You'll start streaming and everything will be jazzy. Again, if you are going to be chopping and changing content, you can also hit start record as well. I personally don't do it because I just upload straight from Twitch to YouTube. But, hey, if you're someone that wants to edit your stuff a little bit more, that's how you do it. Once you're just set up, there are a couple of things you can do. You can hit One thing I'd recommend is just type in a quick chat message just to see that chat's working. Oh no! Our message is blacked out. Whatever will we do? This is the great thing about using Stream Elements, because if we want to change something, we can go back into Stream Elements. What is it that's wrong? Oh no! Text settings. Pick a font. We can go white. We don't like the size. We can change it so that it's bigger. Poopy fart pants. We then hit save. Now that message may disappear, but if we want to check to see if we like the way that it looks, we can go round cows.
You know, back when I was in the academy, we would follow every toast with a song.
And it'll update. Because this scene here, because it's a web-based element, any changes that we make on Stream Elements and then save, it'll then detect and go, a change has been made. I'm going to pull that update as opposed to displaying the text as black. It's lovely, it's jubbly. And that's about all you really need to get your first stream up and going. Now, you'll see here that I have a bunch of other scenes set up. Again, most of that is for very specific reasons based on certain types of content that I'm producing. Like, this is where I do all of my game capture now. This is when I'm just doing like a presentation, like, whoop, hello. Yeah, so this is if I just want to do like a quick message. If I'm chatting to chat, well, why is monitoring on? There we go. If I want to chat to chat, I can come here. We can have a chat. We can talk about jazz. We can do whatever. We can just have a back and forth. And I have a whole bunch of other things like stream starting and on hold as well. I'm back. And that's really all you need. Now, I'd recommend you just keep it to this one scene for now, because, like I said, you want to treat your VTubing experience like baby steps. Just learn, taking one step after another, and when you feel like it's time to add additional scenes because you either want to have it where you can step away for a couple of minutes, or you want to have it where people can just hang out and chat on stream for a couple of minutes while you're just setting up things, feel free to create those things, like we did in Canva, GIMP, and then on Stream Elements. Now, when you do that is entirely up to you. I'm not saying there is a right time, I'm not saying there is a wrong time. Because VTubing, like I've said in the previous video, when we were talking about you, is a creative endeavor at best. And creativity cannot be defined as a step-by-step set of rules, because it's individualistic. Like, to give you an example of how different creativity can be, the work of Van Gogh is not the same as the work of Da Vinci, isn't the same as the work of Run the Jewels. Several different artists creating several different things, but they are all being creative in their own right, even though what they create is wildly different from one another. So, if I were to put a quote-unquote rule on when you do additional scenes, and I'd say rules loosely, try to leave it for a good couple weeks or a month at least. So, now we're going to talk a bit more about test and tune. Now, everything that we've talked about is basically a discussion between when you send something from Twitch, it's going to be sent when you create something on your computer through OBS, and you're signing into Twitch through OBS. It's going to go from your PC through the internet to Twitch, and then Twitch will then send chat messages from Twitch to Stream Elements and then back to your PC. Right? Are we up to date? Cool. And then that cycle will continue. Now, those who know what this is a reference to, feel free to laugh. For those who wonder why there's a black box here, this is actually a reference to a British show called the IT Crowd, where as a joke they said, this is the internet and it's wireless, and watch the IT Crowd, it's a great show. This isn't what the internet looks like, not even close. If I were to show you what your connection from your PC through the internet to Twitch looks like, it would look vastly complicated, because you have to keep in mind the physical pathway as it goes from computer to your router to a black box on your telephone pole, or to a connection of wires in a metal box on the side of your road or somewhere in your street, to what's called an exchange, which is a vast connection of like different people's houses and internet connections coming into one place and then being run through different routers and switches through through many other exchanges, because the internet is a collective of different connections from one computer to another. There is no one pathway to Twitch, which sits on the other end of an exchange, and that exchange then goes to a router, which then connects to Twitch directly. Gets more complicated than that, but one of the things that is of concern to us is how stable is that connection, which is why we test, which is why we tune, because many different things can make it so that our stream isn't as fast, that the bitrate isn't as high, and that the video quality might have to change. So the more we know, the more we test and tune before we go live or before we put serious content out there, the more polished our experience will look. Now, the quote-unquote rules for testing your stream, and again, I say it in quotations, it is not a hard and fast rule, is you want to stream for no longer than about 30 minutes to an hour. During that 30 minutes to an hour, you're just going to go ham, playing games, talking to Twitch, doing whatever it is that you want to do as far as your content is concerned. You then want to make sure that you are recording that experience and also streaming to Twitch at the same time, because what you're going to do is you're going to compare that video to what has been uploaded to Twitch, and what you're checking for is you're checking for dropped frames, you're checking for the video at the VOD, I should say, on Twitch looking a bit funny, and if you find that it's lagging or that things are quiet, that's when you want to play around with different video and audio settings. You then want to compare that as many times as you need to, change as many audio and video settings as you feel are relevant until it sounds just right. Now, during that entire process, and this is still something that I'm having to remind myself, is you have to be prepared to make some goofs, because VTubing being a creative endeavor, there is no one pathway to success. And you will make mistakes based on different things that you do, and I do it all the time. I'm not exempt from this. In fact, to get to this point here where I've made it this final, well, quote unquote final, because I may redo it in the future, this took, I think, 2 separate recordings, several different iterations of the PowerPoint itself, several different versions of the script, and many hours of recording and testing and streaming and theorizing as to what I should say, what I shouldn't say. I also, for this one, actually had to consult with someone who is an IT professional for the government as to if I had structured things correctly and some things to consider. Because usually when I do these final streams, it's about half an hour long, and this is already an hour and a half. And if you stayed this long, thank you. But to get to that point was many different happy accidents, because there are no mistakes. Like in the previous video, there are only happy accidents. There are no mistakes, only happy accidents. And what that means is every time you goof is a time to learn how to not goof again. Sound good? Alright. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. So, hopefully, that points you in the right direction as to how you should not think about your infrastructure in relation to what sort of content you want to put out, and that should at the very least get you started. Now, just as a side note, there are a couple of other things that I didn't touch base on, such as artists when they have, pen tablets and all the rest of that. VR headsets are another thing I didn't touch base on, and that's because the entire basis of this is just people playing games like Minecraft, Counter-Strike, all that sort of thing. Now, where that would fit into the presentation is when we talked about, building the PC and all that sort of stuff, because that's when you would start to compare different headsets, compare different tablets, and all that sort of stuff. To include every single piece of hardware that you would probably have as part of a streamer is, again, that is a whole other presentation in itself. And to do it along those lines, I've had to, at least in my mind, create a presentation specifically for how someone wanting to get into VR would consider the hardware, how someone wanting to get into drawing art would consider the hardware, and so on and so on and so on and so on, because different objectives in VTubing require different considerations for hardware, software, so on and so on and so on. So to keep it simple, I created the presentation as such. But again, if you feel like including considerations of drawing tablets are relevant, if you feel like including consideration of VR headsets or bodysuits or full motion capture or different software, or maybe you want antivirus touch on, maybe you want cloud storage touch base on, here's what you can do. You can type in !links at any time. That is my link tree. It is on my about section, it is on my everything else, because I am available to be reached on Twitter, TikTok, Discord, YouTube, and right here at home on Twitch. If you feel like you want any of the aforementioned touch base on, contact me at any time. Once I reach affiliate, I am more than happy to either create a video specific to the point that you've raised, or redo the entire thing with those points included. And as always, thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this. I hope your day is jazzy. I hope your day was jazzy. Stay froggy fresh, and I will see you on the next stream.